without further ado, welcome. We're switching a little bit from like the development to the business now to like marketing and product building. I welcome like one of the biggest experts in marketing in Europe, who is like who has like spearheaded the entry of OnePlus into the European market. And just to give you some context on the global reach of that mobile phone brand, if you haven't heard that, this company has managed to go from 0 to 1.4 billion revenue within 4 years, which is definitely one of the fastest companies that I've heard. So please welcome Akis Evangelidis on stage. I'm not sure if I said the name right, but thank you very much to come all the way here to us and share your insights on how to build products and market them.
All right. It's working. Hi everyone, and thanks Sylvania for inviting me here today. So I'll be talking about OnePlus. So let's wait for the quick intro. So OnePlus is a smartphone company, online smartphone company, that was created 4.5 years ago, with actually a very simple idea, which was create a better user experience. You see, back in late 2013, Android smartphones didn't feel very premium. They were actually quite plasticky and had some very gimmick features, such for instance, a heartbeat sensor, which arguably doesn't add any value to the user experience. So that's how OnePlus started. Just simple users wanted a better Android smartphone. At the time, no one thought we would succeed in such a competitive industry. But in the time of 4.5 years, and really by surprisingly sticking to the basics, we managed to prove them wrong. We'll come back to the history of OnePlus, but first let me tell you about our latest flagship device, the OnePlus 6, which we announced actually just a few weeks ago in London, so for you to have a better understanding where OnePlus stands today. Here we are. So the OnePlus 6. So good thing the OnePlus 6 was our most successful device to date. And actually, we run for the first time in keynote in London, where we had 2,000 people, and we streamed it online, and it was watched at peak time by over 260,000 concurrent viewers. And something very unique about OnePlus, out of those 2,000 attendees, 1,300 were fans. Fans that actually bought the ticket to attend the launch event, as you would buy a ticket to attend a music concert, for instance. And actually, we were quite stressed. It was the first time we were doing this, so we didn't know if we were going to be able to sell out all those tickets. So we started all those strategies, early bird tickets, etc. And our worries we put aside very rapidly, right? Because we actually sold out in less than 10 hours. And something even more surprising was that actually out of those 1,300 fans that came over at the event, we saw through the data that there were about 100 in France, 80 in Germany, and so on, a bit all over Europe. And we're like, wow, did we miscommunicate about the fact that the event was taking place in London? And therefore, I had the team call quite a few of those people all around Europe to check on them and make sure they had understood. And surprisingly, about, I'd say, 8 out of 10, by the time we called them, already booked the travel plans to London. This shows how, in 4 years' time, we've grown into a very strong community and something quite unique within the smartphone space. Then we went on to doing our pop-ups. So 26 pop-ups all around the world, where we had 15,000 people queuing up to be the first one to get the OnePlus 6. Personally, this was in Paris, Rue Cambon, for those who know. It was madness. It was madness. There were over 1,000 people, and the first one in the line was queuing up from 11 p.m. the day before. So he queued up 13 hours. So I went up to him, first to offer him a coffee, of course, because he'd been up the whole night, but more importantly, to understand why. Why would you queue up 13 hours for a phone that's going to be available next day online? And he told me, actually, on the OnePlus 5T launch, he was only the second. Therefore, he was quite frustrated about it, and this time, he just wanted to make sure to be the first one to buy the OnePlus 6. Then the OnePlus 6 went to be our fastest selling device to date. We'll be sharing some results, actually, this week. and it was number one across multiple of our partners in Europe, number one selling smartphone, including on Amazon. But you see, this didn't happen overnight, right? It took 4 years, and 4 years of continuous learning. And I'm here today to share what I think are the most important ones. So the first one is about the user. So user relationship create brand value. OnePlus was started certainly to create a better Android smartphone, but not only. It was started as a new tech company that would work hand in hand with its user to do something meaningful. And actually, by creating a very unique relationship with a user, this translated across the year in a very strong brand identity for OnePlus. We actually, even before even releasing the OnePlus One, we opened this forum, online forum, where on there we exchanged for 6 months to have a better understanding of what people were expecting in terms of the ultimate Android smartphone. And over 6 months, it was a continuous back and forth and feedback. And actually, that's how the OnePlus community was born. Today, this forum has 1.5 million members, and actually, we just recently introduced a new HR policy. So if you join OnePlus, in order to pass probation, one of the items is that you have to do 100 forum posts in order to make sure that all the new employees that join OnePlus understand this core community of OnePlus. A good example on how we involve the community on our product decision-making was actually the headphone jack, right? Do you remember early last year, a lot of smartphone manufacturers started removing it, and we came to doubt, right? Is it something that we should keep or remove? Therefore, we just ran a quick survey on our forum to realize that 80% of the people felt really strong about keeping it. Right? And quite ironically, you know, the 3.5 millimeter jack was introduced in the 1960s. So today it's become a differentiated element for the OnePlus 6 in one of the industry which is led by innovation technology. But actually, this element, the fact that we listen to the user and are very close to them, is actually what differentiates OnePlus from all our competitors. Also, on top of the forums, we try to spend as much time offline with our community. So we run those monthly events. You know, it's just about spending a couple of hours, whether, you know, having a few drinks or doing some laser tag or whatever. But those 2 hours in the long term will bring tremendous value in terms of brand loyalty and brand advocacy. A good example was after the OnePlus, it was after the OnePlus 2 and OnePlus X. The OnePlus X was a mid-range product, which created a bit of frustration among our community because it was a mid-range and therefore not a flagship product in line of the OnePlus vision to create the ultimate Android smartphone. Therefore, we decided to do this crazy thing. We took a bus, customized it inside out, and went across the whole of Europe for 2 months, city to city, and to meet the fans, to rebuild their confidence and rebuild the link with them. And actually, it was great. This was in Brussels, I think. So we had about 200 to 300 people showing up just to see the phone and meet the team. Another example on how we include community onto our decision-making as a business, opening forums. So there we invite a few members to come, where we discuss a particular topic, whether product or based on the company, like such as customer support, and we brainstorm, we get the feedback, we identify key action items to be delivered within a specific time frame. So all this, actually, in the course of the 4 years, it resulted in a very unique brand identity for OnePlus. Actually, OnePlus is the smartphone brand which has the highest social media engagement today, and it was recently elected as a favorite brand by PCMag Reader's Choice Award in 2018 in front of Samsung and Google. Moreover, 40% of our new users come as a result of a recommendation from friends and family. It shows how strong the word of mouth is among our community, right? Therefore, spend time with your users and build a relationship, whether it's online or offline. I mean, it's 100% worth it, and they will definitely return this times 10 to you. User relationship, something very important. But if it wasn't for the product, nothing would be possible, right? I mean, you see, the smartphone industry is such a competitive industry with a constant race to the highest spec, selective innovation, but sometimes just for the sake of differentiating and running a marketing campaign, but arguably without taking the user into consideration. I think a good example on this was the modular phones, right? Modular phones, cool on paper, it was something new, something the press had to write about it. But if you think in a pragmatic way, right, there is not much usage to it, right? You have to carry an extra piece of hardware just in case you need it. And it's the type of thing you use 2 or 3 times, leave it in your drawer, and it stays there for the rest of your life. At OnePlus, we prefer to have a very pragmatic, user-focused approach to product development, where we focus on what the user really wants and trying to make it the best possible. All right. A good thing about OnePlus is that our CEO and founder, Pete Lowe, is a product engineering, and no matter what, product comes first. If you are successful in your product, growth, market share, revenue, etc., will naturally follow. But nowadays, we've seen a lot of business decision driving product decision. And this is a very dangerous game because it's often driven by greediness and often looking only at short-term gains, right? Whereas OnePlus, we prefer to go for the long and sustainable run. If you look at the most established brands out there, they've been around for years, right? It didn't happen over time. Moreover, the smartphone industry is very competitive, and we've seen a lot of major players that are struggling nowadays and are on the way out. Therefore, this won't sound very ambitious, but basically we just want to survive, right? If we survive in the long term, the smartphone market will be shared among fewer and fewer manufacturers, and therefore this will enable us to grow into an established and mature brand. To do so, we focus on one product, and one product at a time. Imagine a company where the CEO, all the way down to the product team, production team, marketing team, etc., focus on one product only. Your chance for it to be perfected until very last detail is much higher, right? Therefore, you have more chance to succeed. We realized this when we launched the OnePlus X. So we had our flagship product, the OnePlus 2, and we decided to announce this mid-range product. And actually, it duplicates everything. It duplicates for product development, both hardware and software, passing by logistics all the way down to marketing. And brought a lot of confusion, right? Are you a premium brand? Are you a mid-segment brand? So definitely a lot of complexity. And who says complexity says higher risks. So since then, we've been focusing on one product at a time. Actually, I was here in Cluj early last year, meeting with one of our CS partners, and I was talking to this agent, and she told me what was great about OnePlus, is that she had to learn everything only about one product. And she knew everything, and she could address any sort of customer queries in a very efficient and effective manner. Whereas before, she used to work in a company where she had to look over 50 products, right? There is only as much you can know about all those 50 products. The last point about product, we have, as I mentioned before, we have a very pragmatic, user-centric approach to product development. And we only focus on what brings real value to the user. On the OnePlus 6, we had actually some negative feedback from both media and some users about not having wireless charging. But if you think about charging, what's the pain point? The pain point is that you want to charge your phone as fast as possible, right? And for this, we actually have one of the fastest charging technologies on the market. On the other hand, wireless charging is slower. It tends to hit your phone because technology is incorporated onto the back of the phone. You still need the plug. And finally, you cannot use your phone while you're charging it. So if you think in a very pragmatic way, not much added value to it. Another example is with the 4K screen displays. On the smartphone size, you cannot actually see the detail if you have a 4K screen display, but it does impact the power consumption and also the cost structure of the device, which will result in a higher price for the end user. Therefore, at OnePlus, we can see this kind of product philosophy really focusing on what adds value from software, which we have Oxygen OS, which is a refined stock Android experience, as we call it, all the way down to each feature and each product, each feature and technology we implement on our phone. This leads us to a high-end flagship smartphone with one of the best Android experience, and finally at a fair price, right? Because the user is not paying for something he doesn't really want or care about. So if you have a good product and a good relationship with your user, you're definitely in a good spot. But there is one final learning I want to share with you today. It's been very important for us. So it's about seeking continuous reflection and improvement. You see, back when we launched the OnePlus One, in order to look into a second smartphone iteration, we needed to sell a minimum of 10,000 units. And actually, we ended up selling 1.5 million. It was pure madness at the time, even from a business point of view, because you need to scale up your operation accordingly. It was, of course, good news, but brought some challenges down the line. And medias were calling it the flagship killer. Users were spending months before being able to get their hands on one. So it was pure madness. Then we also launched this campaign, Smash the Past. Basically, you had to sign up to be picked in order to smash your old phone, upload the video on YouTube, and you would get a OnePlus One for $1. And this resulted, actually the campaign went quite viral, and a lot of people started smashing randomly their phone. But overall, very successful. Then our invite system. This meant that you had to apply for an invite in order to buy the phone. So on top of having one of the best Android smartphones at half the price, it had also this very exclusive aspect to it, which was something nice. It was hard to get the device at the time, but definitely added to the premium experience. Then we went on to the OnePlus 2. We announced it, and under 3 days, we had over 3.2 million people that registered for the invites. And at the time, the hype was huge. Media were talking about us. We actually even sold the first 100 invites for UNICEF on eBay, and we managed to raise over $40,000. And those were only the invites, not the phone themselves. So just buying the invites that would enable you to buy the phone. So at the time, we thought we'd gotten everything right, that we were very successful, etc. Media were talking about us, the most reputable business school were using OnePlus as a case study, and so on. But the reality was different, right? The OnePlus 2, due to some problems, some delays in production, wasn't as successful as it should have been. And then we released the mid-range product, the OnePlus X, which created a lot of frustration among our community. And as a result, the two launches didn't deliver up to expectations. And therefore, we went into some problems, right? As a startup with 2 consecutive launches which don't deliver up to expectation is where the alert signs turn red. So we quickly realized that there was a lot of luck involved in the OnePlus One, in the way the product was good, but the competitive landscape was very poor. And therefore, if we were to replicate the exact same thing today, the outcome would have been much more different given the product offering. And since then, we run internally what we call postmortem. Not the best names, I give you the best name, I give you that. But the idea here is to look at what went well in order to be replicated, but also what went wrong in order to make sure we improve. And this actually developed as a work culture where we continuously strive for reflection and how to improve by making abstraction of external factors. External factors, things that you don't have under control, right? Because the human nature, by default, will try to blame on something or someone. But if you take this blame on you, whether it's the case or not, you'll automatically grow and improve. So where this leads us to? So the future of OnePlus, right? So I guess it's going to be about sticking to those 3 points. One, focusing on the user and creating an even stronger brand. And given the commoditization of the smartphone industry, it's going to be even more important. Number 2, focus on making the best possible product by having a very pragmatic, user-centric approach to product development to make sure we focus on what the user really wants and trying to do the best possible way, but also at a fair price, right? And finally, keep on improving. You know, the team is quite young. Everyone is there in their 20s. And actually, just 2 years ago, we moved to Europe. It was 3 of us. And now we just opened our HQ office in London, and we have a headcount of about 100 people by the end of the year. So improving and growing the team is going to be one of the key challenges moving forward. So this is it. I'm running a bit over time.
Thank you very much. If you have more questions, Akis is available on the Q&A stage.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate making them out here.